Did the Indianapolis Colts just make a massive mistake? It certainly seems like they might have. I'll give my take next here on 4 Verts. I'm Harrison Graham. Daniel Jones has been named QB1 in Indianapolis over Anthony Richardson, as it was reported just a little bit ago. Shane Steichen has since spoken to the media. We're going to hear what he had to say here, and then I'm going to react and just give a lot of thoughts and angles on not only this decision, but really this 3-year period with Anthony Richardson, because it's just been kind of a train wreck since he's been there. Here's what Steichen had to say on picking Daniel Jones. He said, he's the starting quarterback for the season. I don't want to have a short leash on that. I think he's proven, this is where he loses me, that he's played good football in that 2022 season where they made the playoffs, won a playoff game. He had a hell of a year that year. Look, it felt like it was going this way. I'm not surprised it's gone this way. I even understand to an extent why he's picked Daniel Jones, given Richardson's injuries and some other things that we'll talk about a little bit later. And I also agree, look, when you have a QB competition and you make a decision, you want to come out and be firm. Hey, he's our guy we're going to roll with. Obviously, if he's terrible, they'll have to bench him, but they're going to give him an extended leash here. I do get lost a little bit, and I do think it's a tough sell to the fan base that when you say a big part of your reasoning was like, yeah, we've seen Daniel play good. He had a hell of a year in 2022. First of all, that was 3 years ago, and second of all, if this is a hell of a year, then we need to raise the bar. Shane Steichen is a better offensive coach and should have higher standards than 3,200 passing yards, 15 touchdown passes. Did run the ball well that year, but basically just being a solid game manager. That's not a hell of a year. It's not a bad year. He played well enough for the Giants to make the playoffs. He actually played really well in that playoff game against the Vikings. I'm not trying to shit on Daniel Jones from that season. It was clearly the best year of his career, but he was that season? The 20th best quarterback in the league, probably. And that was by far his best year. That's not a hell of a year. That's a serviceable starting NFL level quarterback. But again, for 1 year. In his last 2 years, he's dealt with injuries, but when he has played in 16 games, basically a full season worth, less than 3,000 yards, 10 touchdowns to 13 picks, and the mobility and rushing effectiveness and volume has not been there. And to me, Daniel Jones, if he's going to be your starting quarterback, he has to be an effective runner for you. Otherwise, he's not a starting level player, which I don't think he is anyway. But when he's at his best, he's got to be a guy that you run on design runs and scrambles and stuff like that. The bottom line is, in 6 NFL seasons, he's been below average in 5 of them. And so for Shane Steichen to go up there and say, yeah, he had a hell of a year in 2022, that's why I believe in this guy. It's like, really? That's your sales pitch to the fan base? He was awesome 3 years ago when he wasn't even awesome. He was fine, and the Giants kind of had this weird fluky year in which they made the playoffs and won a game, and they made the mistake of giving him $80 million guaranteed. Obviously, you're not that invested into him financially, but it kind of feels like you're falling into that trap. It's like, well, because we heard a lot of that from Joe Shane on Hard Knocks last year. Like, this is the year of Daniel, because remember, they paid him, and then that first year he was playing like shit. He got hurt. They let Saquon go. They stayed committed. This is the year of Daniel. It's like, I think we kind of know who he is. He had one decent season in 5, and then in year 6, he was bad, because that's what he's been for most of his career. So I think that if I'm a Colts fan, that's not what I want to hear from Shane Steichen. What I want to hear is, you know what? This was back and forth going back to the spring. Daniel Jones has been more consistent. He earned the job. We wanted this to be a fair competition. We split the reps, and he performed better. I may not agree with it if I'm a fan of the team, but I don't want to hear about some overblown season from 3 years ago when Giants fans are laughing at this decision by the Indianapolis Colts. What say you? Did the Colts choose the right quarterback? Type Y for yes, type in for no. And again, they maybe did. I'm not even for sure saying they didn't, But that doesn't mean this whole situation isn't some blunder and mistake by the Colts organization as a whole. And that is where we get to the Anthony Richardson part of this. So coming up next, we'll discuss that. Where does he go from here? What do the Colts do with him moving forward? Because I think it's kind of a weird situation if he's just your backup now. I don't know how that really works. So we will dive into that. But guys, you have been awesome recently. I'm asking for a little more. Can we get to 11,000 subscribers by the end of the preseason, which wraps up Saturday? We're 119 away. We're pumping out content every single day, getting you caught up on the latest news. I'm reacting to all big storylines out there in the NFL. Come join us. Give us a shot. Hit the subscribe button. It is free. Hell, subscribe, set an alarm on your phone for a week from now. If you're not satisfied, you can always unsubscribe, but I would appreciate the chance. We don't charge a dime. Please show some support. Okay, what is next for AR, for Anthony Richardson, after Daniel Jones wins this job? Because it really does make you wonder, like, is this just done? Is this experiment over in Indianapolis? Because I don't see how you go back at this point, because, you know, you could say, well, Bryce Young, you know, they went back, and that at least seems to have some glimmer of hope. The difference there is he started his whole rookie year. It was ugly. Started year 2. It was really bad. They benched him for Andy Dalton. Dalton got hurt, and Young went back in, and he actually played pretty well. This has been way more chaotic than even that situation. I mean, just think about this. Since they drafted him top 5 in 2023, his rookie year, which actually is when he flashed the most, in 4 games he looked pretty good at times, and then he had the collarbone injury. That was clearly a setback. And then last year, just all over the map. Starts the first 4 games. It's shaky. Injured, misses weeks 5 and 6. And then when he comes back, plays week 7, and then in week 8, checks himself out of the game. And that's where you can't really defend Anthony and some of this stuff. You know, he was tired from running around a few plays in a row, and it's like, you're the quarterback. You don't come off the field. So then he got benched for that. They brought him back. He started weeks 11 through 16, and then he was hurt again, missed the last 2 games, and now he's lost the QB competition. And this was where I will defend Steichen. He's like, look, man, the reality is he's been hurt a lot. And I think Steichen just got to a point where it's like he's hurt a lot, and he has just not developed. Now, you know, some of that's got to be on the coaching a little bit, but maybe he just can't play. And there's certainly some validity to that. And I think now, to me, this decision of picking Daniel Jones, I think you just have to trade Anthony Richardson, because as soon as Jones has a bad drive, a bad quarter, a bad game, they're going to want to see Richardson. I'm talking about the fan base. Why? Because they drafted this guy at top 5 overall. He's this big 6'5", 240-pound rocket arm quarterback that, you know, fair or not, people still think could be something special. I don't even necessarily think that, by the way, but I do understand the fans being like, he hasn't had that much time to develop. I mean, I think Jeff Schwartz made some really good points here. He said, look, Richardson might be very bad. I agree. He might be very bad. And I tend to agree he's probably never going to be good. I also agree. If I was a betting man, I don't think he'll pan out. But this is where I agree as well. He says, however, he's attempted 348 passes in his career. Aiden O'Connell has almost double that, and he's not viewed as a starter. Will Levis has over 500 plus. It's more about the process for me. He says the Colts failed the process here. And I think that is a perfect tweet for this whole situation. Richardson might suck. I didn't like him coming out. I thought he was super overdrafted. But if you are going to draft him, everyone knew he was a project, including the Colts. He started for 1 year at Florida and played a little bit in the year before that. There is a long track record of guys who don't start a lot of games in college. They need a lot more development, especially this guy with his play style. Super raw, the accuracy, understanding how to read defenses, and just learning the position, because he didn't play a ton in college, and yet you're just punting already. It feels like a quick trigger. Now, again, he got hurt his rookie year, got a little dinged up last year, checked himself out of a game, which seemed to rattle the locker room. I think teammates probably lost respect. Anthony Richardson is not innocent in this situation. I'm not saying it's some crime against humanity that he is not the starter here, but it's more so the Colts, clearly they shouldn't have drafted him, because this is this is a quick bail, in my opinion. And you might say, well, who knows? Maybe he gets back in there. Steichen already said we want Jones to be the guy. We want him to start the whole season. We don't want a short leash here. So to me, again, I think you just have to trade him because that's a direct signal. Like, I think Steichen's just done with him. Like, he doesn't believe in him. He doesn't think he can develop him. He doesn't trust that he'll stay healthy, which those are valid concerns. But you knew what business you were getting into when you drafted him. And so that's really the mistake, the whole process, not necessarily picking Daniel Jones here. If you think he's the better option, if he's outperformed him in camp, you have to pick him. Why? Because you got 89 other dudes in that locker room who are like, wait, you picked the guy who's worse? And I would think that players on that team probably have a feeling on who's performed better. Now, I'm sure there's some split. I'm sure some guys would like to see Richardson in there. That's natural when there's a competition. But I'm not going to blame him for picking the guy he thinks gives him a better chance to win. But from day one, the plan and the execution of the plan that has not been there to try to develop this guy. And there's been some injuries and other things, and things from Richardson's side of this that has set it back. But it has not been well executed from Indianapolis' standpoint. And my final theory here is I think Steichen looks at this and he's like, if I start Richardson and it's a disaster and he wins like 5 games, I'm out. But he probably views this like, hey, I went 9-8 with Gardner Minshew a couple years ago. Daniel Jones is in that caliber of quarterback. If we can just play ball control, if he can take care of the ball, if the defense is solid, I can win 7 to 9 games, maybe 10 if you get lucky. And then I can go to ownership and be like, listen, twice now with bridge starters and really backups, I have had us on the doorstep. Get me a real quarterback. That is kind of how I think he's viewing this. And, we'll see if it pays off for him or not. I will say this, part of drafting Anthony Richardson, like, that's kind of Shane Steichen's job to develop him, and he failed to do so. I'm not saying it's his fault, but this is a risky move. I mean, if you play Daniel Jones and he's a joke, which he's been for 5 of 6 years, then you're really out of a job. So again, this individual part of the decision, naming Jones a starter, I see both sides of it. But the whole conclusion of the 3 years, it's a massive failure. I mean, there's just no way around it, and a lot of that does fall on the Colts. So should the Colts trade Anthony Richardson now? Like, if I'm a team and I don't have, if I want to carry 3 QBs on a roster and I just want to buy low on a talented guy, like, I don't know, 5th, 6th round pick for Anthony Richardson, come be our QB3, we'll develop you behind the scenes, why not? I think teams would be interested and probably wouldn't cost that much. And if you're the Colts, it's like, do you want that distraction? Because as soon as Jones struggles, the fans are going to want Richardson. Type T for trade, K for keep. If I'm Indy, I'm probably just cutting ties at this point. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of For Verts. We will continue to pump out content every single day, so please subscribe to the channel. See you guys next time.